Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, do I love the summer, because that's when all the new games get announced. And we have had a very interesting one coming up recently. Do you remember Verdun? What about Tannenberg? Even Isonzo, the Alpine front. But there's still a place that's left unexplored, and a place that is very rarely touched upon within the gaming industry. And this is Gallipoli. Dunes, beaches, deserts, they are all coming to World War I. Do you remember Black Mill, the World War I game series? They started off in 2014 with Verdun, a gritty World War I trench-based simulator where you'd fight, attack and defend with whistleblowers. Mustard gas would come over the top and completely suffocate you. Snipers would be, well, everybody's worst enemy. And because of the success of that game, they released Tannenberg, going to the Eastern Front, fighting in Russia. It was way more open, it felt way more like a modern shooter, if I'm going to be honest, in mechanics, but it wasn't quite as popular. Alas, just a few years ago, we got Isonzo, kind of the pinnacle of where the technology had come to. It looked so much more beautiful, the maps were so much more detailed. You can tell the budget and the time that had gone into it was immense. But each of these games explored a different front with historical authenticity. They were kind of, and still are, really the only World War I game series that is doing it in an authentic and realistic way. But Gallipoli marks the fourth standalone entry, shifting focus to the Middle Eastern front, to the Gallipoli and Mesopotamia campaigns. It has just been announced at Gamescom, but it is coming in 2026, so we don't have too long to wait. Diving into the brutal expeditionary warfare of World War I's lesser told theatres. Still true to the series, it's going to be squad-based realism with distinct class roles and tactical depth. If anybody is unaware of this series, it is a little bit like a Postscriptum, a Squad 44, even Arm or Hell Let Loose, in the fact that it is very much team-orientated. Everybody has their own roles and they stick to it. Whether you're the captain that can blow the whistle or send orders over the top, only has a bolt action and every shot counts. Maybe even you get lucky and you get to play a sniper class. You have to spot enemies from afar and you can be absolutely deadly if used well on the battlefield. This is all going to be coming to Gallipoli, emphasizing authenticity and weapons, uniforms and historical atmosphere. Boy oh boy oh boy, they are really going to push it. In fact, these guys know what they're doing at this point with the World War I game series, to the point where I'd probably say they maybe push authenticity so much that it turns away a lot of its audience. But what it does do is create a very loyal fan base that love the historical accuracy that these games provide. You'll be fighting not as lone heroes but as squads, each role vital to victory. But let's talk a little bit about the terrain and the battlefield. Of course, we are going to the Middle Eastern front, coastal dunes, desert expanses, urban areas, Mesopotamian terrains. This is something I'm really looking forward to, and by the trailer and the screenshots, it's going to look gorgeous. Of course, we've got these open deserts, but also fighting within these urban areas as well. That is something that's going to change quite a bit. I think Isonzo went so far into being part of the Alpine terrain that actually urban fighting is where these games really start to shine. You see, whilst I think it's discussed that these games could all be part of one package, I actually think that they do explore very different aspects of the First World War. Verdun was definitely based in the trenches and of course the disgusting, dirty European front. It was a push and pull offensive. You'd be sitting around waiting for your command to be given to go over to the top. Then Tannenberg was way more open, and while still had some of that trench warfare, you'd be running across a lot of open ground, being sprayed down by machine guns, and people were falling left, right and center. Then of course going to Isonzo and the Alpine regions, you could even drop down rocks on people scaling up these cliffs, and it was definitely a treacherous battle, not just for the enemies, but of course the terrain and the environmental matters that were on there as well. All of these games do offer something quite different, and Gallipoli is actually the perfect choice to taking that next step into a completely different zone. I mean, desert expanses, along with urban areas, coastal dunes as well, beach landings, dusty streets, and the landscape cast a harsh, unforgiving sun across the whole of the battlefield. This is going to be a dramatic shift away from the trenches and even the mountains to open beaches and arid cities. But let's talk a little bit about the nitty-gritty details of the gameplay, its features and the mechanics. It's going to be completely squad-based multiplayer FPS like the other games. Of course, you can choose from being a stretcher bearer, a light machine gunner, an officer, a medic, surviving together. There'll be public matches, but also with the AI bots. I think this is something that is really important, because this isn't the most mainstream game series in the world, meaning that especially a few months or years after launch, it doesn't have the player base in order to keep these games going, but you can still hop on and get fun out of it because of the AI. And don't get me wrong, they're not incredible, but they do help stat pad, which for me, that's all I've ever goddamn wanted. The combat is going to be pretty realistic, handling heavy weapons or being suppressed, trying to duck down behind rocks as gunfire goes over the top and your screen starts shaking, methodical reloading, all adding to the immersion as well. Now, the thing is, Gallipoli is going to be quite a tricky one to do because it is an incredibly bloody and pivotal campaign. Over 10,000 Anzac lives were lost and still commemorated on Anzac Day today. This is a campaign that is, well, much like a lot of World War I, is not taken lightly. But if I'm going to be honest, this is a game series that if anybody can do it with great respect, because they do take historical authenticity seriously. There's no Battlefield 1 running and gunning, spraying with automatic weapons, or, Seven Nation Army playing as mustard gas fills up trenches. I think the World War I game series are the people to do it, especially Blackmail, who will work on this next one. The series is going to retain its dedication to accuracy and respect, with the gameplay grounded in real uniforms, weapons, and of course battle conditions to the way it would have been fought at the time. Now, this is going to fill a really significant gap within the World War I shooter genre, bringing attention to a much less explored, historically profound front. And it baffles me why it hasn't been looked at before. Maybe it is because it was such a bloody campaign, but it seems like it is ripe for the picking with great stories to be told. People looked at it somewhat within like Battlefield 1, but since then there's been nothing. People have been too scared to touch it. But World War I in general is kind of a risky subject as well. It just doesn't really offer the gameplay that keeps people coming back, and it is hard to do it in a respectful way to honor the lives that were lost. But you see, people love running, gunning, and shooting, and as much as that must frustrate many hardcore fans of shooters, that is the reality. That is why titles like Battlefield and Call of Duty do so well. But there is a place for it. There is a moment in time for more realistic and a fan base for authentic gameplay, and I think that these guys are going to be the guys that do it well. As part of Blackmail's series, this will continue it into the important next step. The Gallipoli campaign is something so entirely different. Now, we have 4 fronts over 4 games, but we've never been into the Middle East. Will this be the thing that takes it to that next step and maybe even pushes the series into the mainstream place? I don't know. It could be. I think after this 4th game, though, World War I will be very explored. There is still more to go, though. I can't wait to see what they do next. Please let me know what you think. The game will be available in 2026 on Steam, and presumably, and whether it's going to come onto consoles, well, I guess we're just going to have to find out. Crossplay has been a thing in the past, but I'm going to be completely honest, this is very much a series that is based on PC. It looks like at this point in time, the graphics requirements are pretty goddamn high. A GTX 1070 as the minimum, an RX 580. It seems like that is becoming more and more of the standard, but if this game looks anything as close to Isonzo, they have really pushed the graphics on that title, and hopefully we get to see it again. There's been plenty of screenshots that have come up so far, and I'll leave links in the description to the Steam pages and any more information that I find. But please, make sure you subscribe to the channel for any quick news that you're looking for. But until then, I will see you in the next one.